Hello, all you happy people. Welcome to Stick to Shorts. My name is JD Hansel, and this is a show about classic cartoons. What do I mean by classic cartoons? Tori, stop mimicking me. She's moving her lips to my lines. I'm going to have to throw off what I'm saying now to throw her off. What do I mean by classic cartoons? Do I mean internet animations that you would see on social media? No. Do I mean feature length animated musicals? No. What for shame, Doc? Screw all of you. I'm talking about classical theatrical animated shorts. These are the animated films produced for movie theaters during the classical Hollywood period. That makes this technically a movie review podcast. So if you know what movie review podcasts are like, this is that. In the show notes, you'll find content warnings so you know what you're getting yourself into, as well as availability information for our featured cartoon so you can find a place to watch it. Check out our Blue Sky page at Stick to Shorts so you can see what we'll be covering next. This week on Stick to Shorts, we continue our cartoonorama, so to speak. Cartoonorama? I still don't know. Around the major studios and directors that made the most memorable classic cartoon shorts. Now we're returning to MGM. Two of the most successful creators in animation history, Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera, made so much of their most acclaimed work at MGM, and almost all of the cartoons they directed starred the same two characters, that mythic duo of cat and mouse, Tom and Jerry. Rather than starting with one of their major award winners, which often broke the formula pretty significantly, it feels fitting to give you an example of their typical fare, a chase with a little twist. So what you're getting is just a Tom and Jerry cartoon. That's it. I think you'll find that still gives us a lot to talk about. Joining me for this really necessary trip through Toontown is the creator of many Muppet fan projects, including the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame, and I'm also glad to say she's a buddy of mine. Tori Schmidt is here. Hi, Tori.
Well, hello, JD, and everybody listening. Hi, how are you?
I'm exhausted. How are
Really?
you?
What was that word you just said? Exhausted. That sounds about correct.
Yeah, wiped out. Kaput. That's where I am. That's where I am going into this recording, which means it's either going to be very slow or loopy as all get out. It'll probably move back and forth a lot, just like the pacing of a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Well, I've been chased around by a house cat all day, so I'm just like, I'm completely pooped.
That'll wear you out. That'll absolutely wear you. You got to drink lots of water if that's what you're doing. It's important to stay hydrated. Very good. Very good. Tori, how did we land on this cartoon? Because I think...
I don't entirely remember. I gave you a very long list of, like, you were like, hey, let's talk about Tom and Jerry, because there's just, like, so many of these.
Yeah.
And you were like, actually, I remember a different list you gave me like 6 months ago. Can we pull from that instead?
Yeah.
And that's how we landed here.
And I'm like, the one that's kind of the typical one that makes it easiest for us to just talk about what a Tom and Jerry cartoon is the Invisible Mouse. Not one of their award winners, not nominated for anything, not really a big deal, but one that's very much around. Like, it's always been very available on DVDs for about as long as Tom and Jerry cartoons have been. I definitely remember watching it a lot as a kid.
Me too. And may I briefly talk about how I first discovered these cartoons?
Please. This is the perfect time for that, Tori. Go ahead.
So when I was a kid, there was this thing called Recess.
Heard of it.
But whenever it rained...
Oh, that womps. Sorry, reference to Recess, which is what I thought you were talking about. Go on.
I mean, I did watch that as a child as well.
Of course.
So whenever it rained, you had about 250 kids stuck in a room. Obviously, if you don't distract them somehow, they're gonna go nuts. And so they would always play some DVDs, and you would think it would be like, I don't know, Finding Nemo or Shrek or something.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it was old cartoons. And it wasn't Disney cartoons, which also I feel like would make more sense if it was like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck cartoons.
Those feel safe. Those feel like, safe. For the most part, except for the war cartoons or whatever, they feel pretty safe for everybody.
All it was Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. So I have a lot of memories of both Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, but they're all kind of just scrambled together.
Yep.
Because this DVD would just be on. So, like, you would come into lunch halfway through one cartoon, and you would leave lunch halfway into another
Mm-hmm.
with maybe two or three full in the middle. So like I somewhat remember certain cartoons, but it's also like not fully because also on top of like watching the cartoons, you're eating lunch and talking to your friends. So
Yeah.
everything is fully melded together. So I have these vague memories of like, oh, there was some Tom and Jerry cartoon with a bird and a train, and
Right.
that ended up being the flying cat. I looked back later and like, oh, that's what that was.
Well, you can do that. I think you can easily do that because I definitely just had a DVD that was in the van or whatever. And so when you get back in the car, it's going to pick up wherever it left off, and you're going to get through whatever chunk of that DVD and then leave in the middle of a cartoon to go to Little Jim or whatever. Like, it was all a jumble. And then later you have to try to figure out, well, what was on the DVD in what order and piece together what you actually saw. And that captures the way that kids saw this stuff on TV, where it would be a compilation stitched together into a half hour of programming. All kind of a mess. The kids aren't reading the titles, and they're probably going to be eating their cereal on Saturday morning and not really paying attention.
I mean, what's even worse is like you can go back, or at least at a point you could go back and be like, "Oh, I had this DVD," and look, I don't even know what DVDs they were playing.
Right.
I have no clue. And eventually, I know at some point after I left, like the sixth grade, because the way
We are
the
getting a
lunchroom
lot of
worked,
lunchroom specific details, Tori, at the top of the episode. I just need you to get to a destination. This is all fine. I just need you to get to a destination.
What I'm saying is, I'm pretty sure they're not showing the Looney Tunes anymore, and they're just showing boring YouTube videos with the minions to the kids now during lunch, and I think that's upsetting.
Yeah, that's wrong. Definitely there was a time when many adults were very excited by old things coming out in new formats. Like, I remember being shown Looney Tunes in church one time. Not actually Sunday morning, but this was like an evening Awana thing where whatever they had planned did not work out. And so they just gathered all of us in the sanctuary and said, now, you kids may have never heard of Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, but we grew up with these and they were the most important part of our Saturday morning, so you're going to see them. And I don't remember which ones they showed. I couldn't tell you what DVD it was, don't remember what cartoons were on it, but it was just a jumble of some of the major Looney Tunes shorts. And it was just kind of important to people of a certain generation to make sure that that stuff got passed on after it wasn't being shown as much on like regular television.
And I feel like that's still true, but not for, like it's true for another generation's worth of stuff, if that
To a
makes sense.
degree.
To a
but,
degree.
But I think more and more and more, you will find parents, teachers, authority figures going, whatever's on YouTube and whatever the algorithm decides is easier, and that's what we're going to do. And whatever's actually effective at managing the kids' attention.
Oh, you know what? Let's not talk about that because I'm going to get really upset really quickly
That's
if we
true.
continue
Okay,
down
all
this
right.
rabbit hole.
Let's go to something lighter. So yeah, talking about some of these cartoons that we remember that stand out to us as memorable Tom and Jerry cartoons.
Well, I know you just said, let's talk about something lighter, but one of the ones that has definitely stuck out to my mind is the one where Tom dies and almost goes to hell.
Yep. Yep, that's a big one. And interestingly, one that Leonard Maltin in the book of Mice and Magic, in his MGM chapter, kind of circles and underlines Heavenly Puss, this strange cartoon in which Tom, it is very clear that if he cannot get Jerry to sign an apology, he is going to go to hell. I look forward to doing an episode on that cartoon sometime. But honestly, it's dark, but given the violence that I'm accustomed to in other Tom and Jerry cartoons, it almost doesn't feel as dark despite the subject matter.
Well, it's also not the darkest Tom and Jerry cartoon either.
No, it's not Blue Cat Blues.
It's not. Oh,
Leonard Maltin hates that one.
I
Hates
hate
that
one. I can't wait to hear your episode on it. I'm sure you have to get the Blue Cat Blues eventually.
Eventually. I don't know if that's going to make it's not going to be in the first 50 episodes, I can tell you that, but like eventually it would be nice to do.
I would avoid that one too, just because how do you talk about?
Well, here's the thing, though, Tori. For me saying that's not going to be in the first 50 episodes, that doesn't mean I'm avoiding it. It just means I have too much other stuff that's more pertinent to the narrative that I need to build to get people through what the next few seasons of this show is going to do.
Right.
Like, right now we're in the Cartoonorama, looking around at different studios, just kind of a tour, bouncing around from year to year, taking everything in a jumble, because that's the way that you first take in, oh, Tori is seeing the sights and looks like she's in Roman holiday or whatever, gasping at, okay. No, we're... okay, put the camera down. In the second season, which is coming up soon, here's some animation history that kind of shows the development of character animation as we know it, which I guess we'll explain a bit more.
Basically, what he's trying to say, folks, is before we can get to Blue Cat Blues, we got to talk about Gertie the dinosaur. That's what he's trying to say.
That is literally exactly what I am saying. Yeah, we're like a couple episodes away from that, basically.
What are some of... I know I said one of mine. What's another one of your Tom and Jerry?
Solid Serenade is a big one for me, because that is in the genre of Tom tries to woo a female cat that he thinks is really pretty. And that's something that you'll see in Blue Cat Blues. It's in a bunch of these cartoons. It's one of the main examples of the Tom and Jerry third thing. I think it's very rare to get a cartoon from Tom and Jerry that doesn't have them interacting with some other force or other element. It could just be a plot device, but it's very often another character. So you're going to have an owner for Tom who might make some ultimatum that's going to force Tom to get Jerry out of the house or keep things quiet, prevent a mess, something like that. Or you could have a rival cat or a bulldog or some little guy that Jerry has to save. All of these other elements come into play, as well as some more fantastical twists, like what you get in this case of the invisibility element. But what you don't see as much is cartoons in which Tom simply wants to eat Jerry. He usually has some other motivation that often has something to do with this other element. And very often, it's the fact that he's trying to get a girl. In Solid Serenade, you get to see him trying to woo her with a song. The song Is You Is or Is You Ain't My Baby, which is a super fun jazz number that's like one of my favorite cartoon music moments. And then he turns into this like French romantic lover.
I love you. Now you set my soul on fire. It is not just a little spark. It is a flame. A big roaring flame. I can feel it now.
And, of course, it turns out that he unknowingly is talking to the dog, not the cat, and yeah. It's beautiful. It's great. I love the moments when Tom talks, which he does way more often than we tend to address.
I absolutely despise when Tom talks.
Okay, fair enough.
I
had a funny feeling that would be your opinion.
Yeah, I don't know why, because it's obviously, like, I don't mind talking animals. That's not
Sure.
an issue. Obviously, I volunteered to be on the cartoon podcast.
Right.
I'm okay with that. But if a character should talk or a character shouldn't, it's weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird to me when he talks. I don't mind him singing for whatever
okay.
reason. I kind of like that just because it's funny.
I get that. That feels like it's on a different plane of existence than just speaking dialogue.
Well, especially in one of the shorts I watched to prepare for this, it's through a record, which is incredibly funny.
Yes, so that's Texas Tom, which is another one that I remember really fondly.
If you all come to Texas, look me up. We got everything in Texas looking.
Am I right or am I river? Memphis State's a killer diller.
If you ever down in Texas, look me up.
And unfortunately, all of this probably speaks to the fact that this was just a kind of story that I liked and related to as a kid. 8-year-old JD is like, well, of course everyone in the world understands doing absolutely anything and everything you can to try to woo a girl. It is the primary desire for human beings, and it just makes sense. Like, that's just where my head was at an age when everyone else was thinking, like, no, cooties, boys and girls should be away, and I was not that way. And so I latched onto these Tom and Jerry cartoons a bit more than I think other people would have.
I do.
I'm better now. I got better.
Oh, JD, I know you personally. I know you're better now. We're all terrible people until we turn at least 15. Does the pretty girl cat have a name? Because I know
Oh,
she's
she
a recurring
does.
character.
Yeah,
And I
but
feel
it's...
bad that we just are referring to her as pretty girl cat. I mean, that's basically all she is. Like, she has no
Right.
character. It's the 1940s. I mean, these cartoons are full of one-dimensional female characters. But, like, I hope she has a name.
The Tom and Jerry wiki says that her name is Tara, or perhaps pronounced Tara, but very, very similar to other girl cats that we're talking about, who are strictly speaking not the same character. Like, this is kind of her one cartoon, and apart from that, she appears in Smitten Kitten because that's a clip show cartoon that uses a clip from Texas Tom. And so
Well, is she not the same cat from Solid Serenade?
somehow no, Tori. Somehow no.
Because they, not to be rude, but they look almost identical. Like, I can't think of any differences.
So the cat in Solid Serenade does look different. This is a white cat, not Tara's a gray cat. That's really the big personality difference, I would say. The white cat is named Toodles Galore. There you go.
Hey, you know what? All of my complaints are gone now.
I do love some of their award winners as well. I think that by and large, the cartoons that they got the trophies for are pretty good in general. 7 Academy Award winning cartoons. This is after Disney had the Oscar for as long in the 1930s, for like as long as it existed. As soon as there was a Best Animated Short Oscar, it was the Disney Award straight through the 30s. And pretty much as soon as that gets taken away from him by MGM, you see these Tom and Jerry cartoons start cleaning up straight through the 50s. And a lot of times they're really good. Quiet Please being my personal favorite. I think it's really funny.
I agree. The problem with these Tom and Jerry cartoons is that it's hard for me to put thoughts together because if I gave my thoughts, it would just be like, this gag's really funny. This other gag is also really funny.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
they're
tricky.
just really, they're just really, really good comedy writers over there, and the animation is all impeccable. And it's all incredibly smooth and incredibly entertaining and incredibly, even in Quiet Please, which is kind of like all about being quiet, it's incredibly fast and incredibly bombastic and in your face and just completely captivating for the whole time. And I could say that sentence about every Tom and Jerry cartoon, at least from the classic era. Like,
Yeah.
they're just so consistent in their quality. They put out probably about 100 of these, and they're almost all...
If you include the compilations in the Hanna-Barbera era at MGM, they did 114.
And I guarantee you most of them are at least good.
I would say through the 1940s and into the early 50s a bit, I am 100% with you. Like, to be clear, my position is I'm a Looney Tunes guy. That's why I'm doing this podcast primarily, at least. What got me really jazzed about classic cartoons, it's the Warner Brothers stuff, to be sure. But what I have found but I watched Tom and Jerry a lot as a kid and was happy to do it. And what I have found in recent years is that when I put on a Warner Brothers cartoon, it's like really hit or miss. A 40s Warner cartoon, you have no idea what you're going to get. It's going to be spotty throughout the cartoon. It's going to be spotty no matter which director you're following. There are certain directors that I think are a lot more reliable than others and will bring some kind of charm, even if there's a lot about the cartoon that doesn't totally work. But 1940s Tom and Jerry, while they don't have much that gets close to the top of my list and can compete with Dover Boys, Bugs and Thugs, that like those Looney Tunes cartoons that I really cherish, they're consistently good. If I just need to put on a cartoon that's going to make me laugh, you do have to deal with the issue that is Mammy Two Shoes, unfortunately. But if you can avoid those cartoons, or if you just know what you're getting yourself into there, then the reliability is Old Faithful. They're so consistent at just doing their job of making a good 7-minute piece of entertainment.
Which is why I think I have so many good memories of so many different Tom and Jerry cartoons.
Right.
Because there's just like, you could fill up DVD after DVD because they're all so solid. And I agree with the thing with you said about Looney Tunes. I remember watching in the cafeteria and being bored at some of the Looney Tunes,
Yeah.
and I do not have any recollection to being ever being bored at Tom and Jerry.
Yeah. And that part of that has to do with the fact that on the DVD, because they made so many with these two characters on the DVDs, they're able to fill that up with just the best of the best. Like they can put in a little bit of the Chuck Jones stuff if they need to, but they usually don't. A little bit of the Gene Deitch stuff if they need to, but they usually don't. They just have a really good, solid library to pull from that 40s run and a few from the 50s that stand out. And you end up with usually pretty good collections that are very watchable. I put on a Bugs Bunny DVD. It was the first disc in volume 3 of the Golden Collection, which is just a ton of Bugs Bunny cartoons in a row. Bugs, I think, is one of the funniest fictional characters ever created, and relatively consistently so. And yet watching several Bugs Bunny cartoons in a row, I found, wow, I am getting bored fast. It was hard to get through half the disc for me, even though those are some of the better Tom and Jerry, or excuse me, some of the better Bugs Bunny cartoons by and large. With Tom and Jerry, when I watched a bunch of them to prep for this episode all in a row, no boredom, no fatigue, felt fresh every time.
And I think the key distinction there, and you can disagree with me if you want, Bugs Bunny is funny under any number of directors, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tom and Jerry really only works under Hanna and Barbera.
100%.
That classic era from 1940 to, I'm gonna say, the early 50s. I don't remember the exact date. All the cartoons, like we said, are great. The Chuck Jones cartoons, I love Chuck Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't? I think
Right.
his Looney Tunes stuff, The Grinch.
Right.
I love Chuck Jones. His Tom and Jerry cartoons do not work almost at all. I don't know how many of them you've seen.
Very few. And
talk-
I tend to forget the ones that I have seen.
When we get into the, I want to talk about this again later, because when we get into the short that we're actually talking about today, I watched a Chuck Berry. I watched a Chuck Jones short directly after it, and I think the comparisons are night and day. And I want to talk about that later, but I know we have other pressing things to get to, like that time Gene Kelly danced with Jerry.
Yeah, that was like a big achievement for Hanna and Barbera and for MGM in general, because Gene Kelly wanted to go to Disney. Like tried to get Disney to approve on one of their characters to do a dance scene with Gene Kelly in the musical Anchors Away. And for whatever reason, that did not work out, probably in part because two different studios here. So he went to, of course, the MGM animators. And the result is that Jerry is so the wrong size to be dancing with Gene Kelly. It's always weirded me out that he's, 3 feet tall? At least, dancing with Gene. It's so odd. But at the time, it was very much keeping up with what Disney was starting to do in its films as they moved much more to animation and live action interaction. Tori, why does this sequence stand out to you?
I think it's my favorite film of all time is Singing in the Rain.
Oh, okay,
And
cool.
so
And that's a good choice.
Yeah, it's a great choice. And so I am absolutely mesmerized by Gene Kelly's dancing. And it's funny, I've actually never seen the film Anchors Away.
You've never seen Singing in the Rain? I'm
Anchors...
kidding. I'm kidding. Go on.
I've never seen this film, but I've seen this sequence dozens, if not 50, 60 times. Like, it is just so mesmerizing. And I'll tell you how I discovered this
Yeah, that's
sequence.
what I'm curious about.
I don't know if you know, and this is the weirdest thing. At some point, a show I don't even like, Family Guy. Are you familiar with this? Family Guy. Family Guy is a very weird show. We don't have time to get into that. But for some reason, in one of the episodes, they decide to waste 2 minutes of time by superimposing Stewie Griffin over Jerry in this scene.
That sounds right.
And I think I saw this on TikTok or Instagram Reels or something and was like, okay, what is this originally from? and
Right.
then found the original. And I find it so mesmerizing, just the way he and Jerry interacts. Because, like, hypothetically, they could have done this with very little interaction, but like they are they are touching each other a lot. They are doing the jumps. Jerry's sliding under Gene's legs. He's bouncing on Gene's muscles. Like they are fully connected. And it's the copies online are a little fuzzy, but
Hmm.
you fully believe he's in the space. Like
Yeah.
you fully believe it's as good as Roger Rabbit
I
in
will not
that
go nearly that
regard.
far with it, Tori. I'm sorry. I'm not going to go nearly that far. I think it's
But
really lacking in comparison to
it's
Roger
as
Rabbit.
good
But
as it's at least as good as the 40s film Disney were doing, if not better than
I will say it's a lot more believable than what you're getting in Three Caballeros. I'll say that. Like there's a commitment to the shading. Not so much the shading, but like the reflections on the floor,
the
the little
reflection
details
is
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, they committed. They really committed to the details. Let's talk a little bit about Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera. Bill Hanna was a director for Harmon and Ising. We've talked about those two in the past on this show very briefly because they were the two who started some early version of the Looney Tunes cartoons. And then they weren't getting as much money as they wanted from Leon Schlesinger, who just didn't have more money to give them. The budgets at Warner were tight for the cartoons, I mean. And so they split and went over to MGM because MGM offered bigger budgets and just generally had this, they had a reputation for high quality. Now, to be clear, when they went to MGM, so to speak, they got MGM as their distributor, but were able to run their cartoon department pretty independently. And in some sense, they had to. They were not on the studio lot, part of the MGM system. What happened in the late 30s, I want to say it's around 1938, is MGM was tired of contracting other people to make their cartoons. They had tried it initially with Ub Iwerks, Disney guy, first person to draw Mickey Mouse, worked on the Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoons, really driving those. And they, I think, expected, as so many people did, that if you grab the right people from Disney and put them in charge of cartoons, since Disney was not himself doing much of the drawing, then maybe these other people that Disney was working with will turn out to be the true geniuses of the Disney studio, and you'll get cartoons that are at a Disney level of quality. That didn't really happen with Ub Iwerks. And so they brought in Harmon and Ising, also two like early Disney veterans who then were starting to cook up something at least okay over at the Leon Schlesinger studio for Warner Brothers. And they too couldn't quite figure out how to give how to give MGM the level of quality that they wanted. So MGM was like, all right, putting a new guy in charge, Fred Quimby. As usual, not a cartoons expert at all, had nothing to do with animation really, but one of their people who was in with the in crowd at MGM. He got to just kind of assemble a new team however he needed to start making good cartoons for MGM. So he brought in one of our friends from the Warner Brothers team, Friz Freleng, who had started those early Looney Tunes cartoons with Harmon and Ising, the earliest ones with Bosco, and then created Porky Pig in the mid-1930s. And they saddled Friz Freleng with directing cartoons based on a hot comic strip that everybody loves, the Katzenjammer Kids. Or perhaps it's supposed to be pronounced, oh, Tori's pumping her fist. You know it. You love it. Maybe it's supposed to be pronounced the Katzenjammer Kids. I don't know. It's something like that, right? Like this Sherman family that was, I guess, maybe a popular comic strip at the time. To be fair, like Popeye the Sailor came from a comic strip. And that was such a popular strip that it then lent itself to very popular cartoons for the Fleischer Studio. And sometimes it went the other way, where Mickey Mouse was really popular in cartoons, and then they reverse engineered that into a popular comic. So, like, it kind of made sense.
And so for obvious, most people have not heard of this. I did not hear about this
Absolutely
until I
not.
was doing a little research for this episode.
The point of these cartoons in the story of classic cartoons is that they do not matter. Did not work, do not matter.
Well, because what it is, it's 1930, I want to say 38 or 39, and it's a German family.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stop and think for a second about what was happening in 1939,
Exactly. This was
why?
kind of a problem.
I wonder why that didn't go very well.
Yeah. What's amazing, though, Tori, what's amazing is that you are absolutely right about that. And yet, that wasn't even, like, animation historians who talk about that generally go, that wasn't even the biggest problem. The problem is just that the cartoons fundamentally could not work. They could not make this funny. But because of that, because they were like relaunching MGM cartoons, now doing it in-house, they were going to have the animation team fully a part of MGM on the studio lot, part of the family, like eating in the commissary with their movie stars. They were fully invested in building up a good team to make good cartoons, and that means they were pulling people from other studios to try to force this project to work. So they hire Joe Barbera away from the Paul Terry studio in New York. They gave him a huge raise in pay. And that was very much the appealing thing, is like Paul Terry was going to give him a little raise in pay.
I kind of want to say the number because it's really funny.
Go ahead.
To modern ears, folks, he went all the way from $55 a week to $85 a week.
Huge numbers, but truly, like, yeah,
I mean,
it was like the
back
Depression
then,
era.
Yes,
So
1,000%.
it was a good deal, and Joe Barbera was a good gag man. That was his thing. Is like he could come up with great story ideas, great joke ideas, put it all together, come up with a bajillion different ways to do a cartoon, and then quickly draw it all out in a storyboard that showed you the whole cartoon, such that the animators were like, well, we've got our work cut out for us. This is perfect. He's bringing that to MGM in the service of these cartoons. Bill Hanna got to direct a little bit under Harmon and Ising, but for the most part, he was the timing guy. And where did Bill Hanna come from? Sorry, I'm checking my notes here. He started with Harmon and Ising, washing cells on the early Looney Tunes that they did, and gradually took on more and more of directorial duties. Finally, once the Captain and the Kids series was clearly not working and there was no saving it, MGM is desperate. They're investing so much in their cartoon unit. They need it to work. They're MGM. This is the big, major glitz and glamour studio of old Hollywood. And they can't for the life of them get good cartoons. So out of desperation, Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera are kind of looked at as maybe another option. Like maybe if we put these two in charge, that'll work. By this point, they had hired Harmon and Ising into their new MGM studio to try to do their thing again, just to get back to what they had before. And they desperately needed somebody with a new take. And that new take that Joe Barbera brought to them was, what if we do a cat and mouse cartoon? Which had been done a billion times already.
And will continue to be done a million times after. Well, not quite cat and mouse, but like...
But I like Speedy Gonzales and Sylvester.
Or Sylvester and Tweety even. I mean, it's a cat and bird, but it's,
right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The same idea.
The Coyote and the Roadrunner
right.
is a cat. I mean, just because it's not a cat and a mouse,
yeah.
It's still a cat and mouse. I mean, people don't think about this anymore, but ostensibly Mickey Mouse started out as a cat and mouse cartoon.
Very true. You look at Steamboat Willie. Pete is theoretically a cat. Yeah, like that dynamic has always kind of been there, and it's just been toyed with in a bajillion different ways. And most of the examples that you and I are citing, though, notably come after Tom and Jerry were created. Like that's still a lot of the stuff that we remember. Mm-hmm. I think it's worth noting, there is no cultural footprint left from true cat and mouse chase cartoons from before Tom and Jerry. They just wiped away any memory of what came before and became the definitive cat and mouse cartoons. And it was only supposed to be one.
I could not name another cat and mouse before Tom and Jerry. Like,
of course not. Yeah. I couldn't tell you. But, well, it had been done a bunch at, like, the Paul Terry studio in New York, which is a studio we don't think about anymore. I mean, of course, plenty of classic cartoon fans do. They had a number of accomplishments that we'll probably touch on in later episodes. But, like, no. Like, it's Tom and Jerry. They're the cat and mouse. And it's to the point that when we see cat and mouse cartoons being parodied and stuff like The Simpsons with Itchy and Scratchy, we know that's supposed to be Tom and Jerry.
I completely forgot about Itchy and Scratchy until right now.
Okay, maybe we don't. But like,
No,
it is.
when are you going to cover that?
They're spoofing that kind of violence and the way that kids just took in without thinking about it, barely reacting, some of the most grotesque violence in the world, which was justified because it's just a cartoon cat and mouse.
I completely forgot, or maybe I didn't even realize how violent these cartoons are. Like,
Yeah.
we'll talk about this when we get into these two just want each other dead.
Yeah.
Like, these two just want to kill each other. The amount of just a handful, I watched about less than a dozen Tom and Jerry cartoons to prepare for this.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of times guns get brought into play
Yep.
is it's a lot. It's
a
like
lot of
every
guns.
other cartoon, and I was so shocked.
But it's
Because-
also it's odd, right? Like, okay, I'm going to steer us back to that in just a second, but I will just say,
Yes.
just to get it out of the way so we can move into some of these definitive qualities of Tom and Jerry cartoons. They were supposed to make just one cartoon. Like, they barely got away with one cartoon with a cat and mouse, and then they had to move on to another short. Very quickly, they got positive reactions back from a major distributor who's like, when are we going to get another cartoon with this cat and mouse? The cartoon was Puss Gets the Boot, by the way. It had so much personality in it that's very specific to Bill and Joe and the kind of personality that they bring to characters that audiences ate it up. And so without them really getting to make a heck of a lot of other cartoons, they were just kind of tasked with do another Tom and Jerry cartoon. Their producer, Fred Quimby, was really worried about them putting all their eggs in one basket. Didn't want it to be a series. And yet, it just kind of had to be because it kept proving to be popular. And from then on out, they did put their eggs in one basket. All of their eggs. They made cartoons with almost no other characters for the next 15 years. That's it. No other director was like this. And yet they kept thinking of new gags and premises.
Until I recently learned that Droopy was MGM, I don't think I could have named you another MGM cartoon character before today.
It completely dominates the MGM brand and our idea of what an MGM cartoon is. And it was genuinely so much of the studio's output. Another part of why it was so luxurious to go over to MGM is they didn't demand nearly as many cartoons from people. And so they could afford to put all their energy into just making a bunch of Tom and Jerry cartoons because they only needed to do so many a year. And that means that they have a much smaller number of cartoons in total than Warner Brothers. Way smaller. And so the Tom and Jerry cartoons get to eat up a lot of our memory. It also meant for them that it was a place where these animators and directors were sitting pretty and were pretty happy to keep working on the same thing in the same place for well over a decade.
They cranked out, I did the math, they cranked out about 7 or 8 a year.
That sounds about right. I mean, let's look here.
Which, comparatively, the Looney Tunes, correct me if I'm wrong, but then a number of and I know Looney Tunes went on much longer, but like the number of Looney Tune cartoons is in the thousands.
It's about 1,000 from their classic era, which is still an unbelievable, incomprehensible number of cartoons. Admittedly, you're looking at like 1929, 30-ish, all the way to the end of the 60s. That's a huge span of time. But you look at the Tom and Jerry cartoons, take like a peak year for them, where it's like the year of Tom and Jerry practically. That would be like 1945 or 1944. Admittedly, somewhere in here, I know there were some holdups with like some issue with Technicolor that may have been part of why it's not as many as you'd think. I can't remember when exactly that is, but like 1944 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Tom and Jerry cartoons. 1945, same number. And that's kind of all they had to do. And nevertheless, doing that, with that small number, they could invest so much time, on average about a year and a half per cartoon. I mean, of course, that's overlapping with other stuff that with other cartoons that they're working on, but they could invest so much time on these cartoons, perfecting them, that while making that small number of cartoons, they could still rely on one of them getting the Academy Award nomination, and often one of them getting the winning award itself.
7. Does any one cartoon? I know Disney has a lot, but like, does any one character like that have that many? Like, it can't be anybody else. Like, it's not like
No, because in the 30s, it was mostly the individual silly symphonies that won,
I think
which were like generally one-shots, basically.
I can't even think of another one that has more than one.
Let's...
I think the only other characters, and this is much, much later, is Wallace and Gromit.
Oh, that's a good call.
They win for I
The
think
wrong trousers.
the wrong trousers and then a close shave, and then
You're right.
they lose. Yeah, I know it's out of the time frame
That's
of where
way
you
out of my
are.
time frame, but you're right.
But I wish it wasn't, because I would yammer about
Maybe
Wallace and
someday
Gromit.
bonus episodes, maybe I will say Sylvester and Tweety also won a couple of times, and we'll get into that.
Okay.
And one more character who won a couple of times in the 50s. This is a fairly problematic one. Can you guess who it is?
Is it Gerald McBoing Boing? Oh no,
You're so close. You're so close.
I'm on the wiki. Is it Speedy?
No, Mr. Magoo.
Oh, Mr. McGo is Mr. I guess he is problem. Yeah,
Someday
I
we'll
never
unpack
thought of
it.
it like that.
I've got some
guess-
thoughts on Mr. Magoo.
So
There's so much to unpack here. So let's
the
let's
violence.
just talk about the violence in the Tom and Jerry cartoons.
It's like they had no limits.
Yeah.
It's like they were told, you can do whatever you want. You can use firepower. You can kill these characters, basically.
So long as there's no blood.
As long as there's no blood. That's the only, like, hard rule.
They're not afraid to cut into the characters. Like, you talk about the gunplay and the explosions and stuff, and you'll see plenty of that in the Warner Brothers cartoons. Like the most famous Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck cartoons, the Chuck Jones Hunting trilogy, are all about Daffy getting shot over and over again in the face. That does not read nearly as violent as moments when Tom's tail gets cut off, when he chomps off pieces of his own hand. Even the ways that his body gets stretched and squashed into the different shapes of the different objects he crashes into or goes through still always has this extra bodily quality. And it all goes back to the first Tom and Jerry cartoon, Puss Gets the Boot, when Jerry takes two fingers and pokes them right into the middle of Tom's eye. That's a lot more visceral, more realistic, grounded, more bodily than what you're used to seeing in a Looney Tunes cartoon, even if it's theoretically, in real life, not nearly as destructive.
To me, it's hard for me to talk about the violence without talking about another very specific part that makes these shorts so great, which is the scoring and the music, because they really go hand in hand. Every piece of violence, like, the music is the violence and the violence is the music. The sound, there is no such thing as sound effects. It's just a discontinuing score. At least in a lot of the ones we watched.
Right. I mean, there are sound effects, and yet they feel like they are completely a part of the score because of how much the music is networked into everything about these cartoons.
It almost, especially the main one we're talking about, Invisible Mouse almost to me feels like something out of Fantasia. Like, it's like, and I know it's not a classical piece, but just the way it's done to the music, it's like that. I know the piece was written for Tom and Jerry, but it almost feels the other way around. It almost feels like they listened to this music and specifically came up with the story around the music sometimes.
Yeah, there is a very Peter and the Wolf quality to it, where your sense of the narrative is, and the character's personality is so informed by the music that you're hearing, which is, again, part of the appeal for these creators to stay at and give their all to MGM. They had access to the main full studio orchestra for the studio, and they had a man named Scott Bradley as their composer. Now, this is not the same Scott Bradley who you may have found on YouTube, the jazz arranger known for a postmodern jukebox, a delightful throwback band. That is a completely different spelling of the last name, so I have no reason to think they're related. This Scott Bradley was a film composer. That was his life, and he was good. I'm gonna give you some specific examples of what he does really well in today's cartoon very soon.
It would be really funny if he was still alive and that's what he was doing. Like, if somehow this man who probably would be 130 years old, I reckon, was still around and what he was doing was making Chaperone sound like Leslie Gore, that would be very funny.
All right, let's dive into the short itself. This week's trip through Toontown takes us to 1947. The studio is MGM, the directors are Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera, and the cartoon is The Invisible Mouse.
I don't know what the time code is, but we're finally at what we're actually here to talk about.
It took us a while to get into it. Well, I wanted to just use this as a way to generally talk about Tom and Jerry. It is very useful for that, I think. The opening title cards set you up to think this is going to be a spooky science fiction-based parody of The Invisible Man or something like that. Like you get sort of this eerie science fiction scene of chemicals being poured together, and the cartoon is so not that vibe at all. There's like a little moment when it kind of goes in that direction, but not really. Like, it wouldn't be worth using this as an October release for the podcast.
Well, it's so funny because there's a different Tom and Jerry cartoon that is like that, and they could have totally used those for that.
Do you want to, before we get to, do you want to have that conversation now or later? Before we get to
I want to have that conversation. Can we get into that conversation? So, first off, I want to talk about media availability real quick. So, for whatever silly reason, HBO Max decided they hate their legacy. And on top of getting rid of all of the Looney Tunes cartoons, they got rid of all the Tom and Jerry cartoons.
At the time of this recording. Again, it could change again next week. When I started the podcast, there were plenty of Tom and Jerry cartoons on Max.
When we started talking about this episode, there were Tom and Jerry cartoons on Max.
Yeah, it was part of my reasoning for what cartoon I picked.
But so now there's a bunch of Tom and Jerry on Tubi. It's called Tom and Jerry Theatricals, and it's by all means, it's not all of them.
No, but it's a good amount.
But it's a good amount.
In compilations.
Yes, it's in compilations. So one episode of this is 3 theatrical shorts.
And the ad breaks are like between the cartoons. Like, I didn't get an ad before I watched the first one.
Neither did I.
But between them, you get a little ad break.
There's like droopy cartoons.
Yeah.
In between
in the
Tom and
mix,
Jerry
which
cartoons.
I think is true to the way that they used to be shown on television, but is nevertheless kind of a surprise.
Especially because it's not just called MGM Theatricals. It's specifically Tom and Jerry. Anyway, so this cartoon we're talking about, The Invisible Mouse, is the first cartoon in what they call episode 24. Right after it is a short called Is There a Doctor in the Mouse? Which is a 1963 Tom and Jerry short. Or 1964.
And so that means it's past the era when Hanna and Barbera have been given the boot from MGM. They've gone on to start their own project in television animation, which never went anywhere. We've never heard of them. We don't know of anything that Hanna and Barbera did for TV. It's all lost. It's all very obscure.
Yeah, I think they did the theme song to I Love Lucy, and then they were done after that. Anyway,
that's all.
This is not Hanna-Barbera. This is directed by the legendary Chuck Jones, who I adore. And yet, it is by far the worst cartoon I watched in preparation for this thing. And you might be asking yourself, why did you watch it? Because I didn't watch none of these like collections of 3 shorts that I watch all 3 shorts in the collection. Like, I did not do that because it's so wild and random.
Yeah.
I watched it because it started and I recognized it instantly. This was one of the ones that they showed back in elementary school. I knew it by heart.
I did not know that I knew this cartoon when you initially said that you watched it, and then I put it on like just before we started recording, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've seen this multiple times. How? Why?
And we might have had the same DVD, which
Maybe so.
Is possible.
Very possible, yeah.
And it's a similar-ish premise, as in it's Jerry takes some sort of thing to gain a superpower to better trick Tom.
Yeah.
It's invisibility in the main short, and it's super speed here. And even though the power he gains is super speed, it feels a million times slower than the other one. It is a slog. They take time. It feels like a Chuck Jones cartoon. It feels like, we talked about this earlier, one of the boring Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
They take time to do visual gags that take way too long. Like, it doesn't feel like Tom and Jerry, and I
Right.
really do think that this is one of the franchises that lives or dies off of its original creator. And just watching these two back to back and seeing one, the pacing differences and how, with slightly similar premises, the pacing differences and just how bad the pacing of this one is. And then the animation's night and day. The animation in the second one is really choppy. It has something I hate, which is the Tom with the kind of like triangle, like his face is, you know what I'm,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just looks off.
Everything about them feels off. Really, I mean, the rhythms being off is the main thing. It's
That
like
is
the
the main
thing that
thing.
makes it feel slow is just it's a completely different rhythm. It's a completely different sense of pace that does not suit those characters. And Chuck Jones like freely admits, like, yeah, I could not figure those characters out. But he's always like, well, it's always the case that when you take on characters created by other people, then you can never quite capture what they did. And it's like, buddy, you didn't create Daffy Duck and you found something there. It may have taken you a little while, but you figured something out with Daffy. You could not figure out Tom and Jerry to save your life.
And I just felt sad watching it
It's so sad.
and I truly think that Tom and Jerry, everything they have done after the original Hanna-Barbera run has just been awful.
It's not great. Like, they've never reached the same heights again, that's for sure.
Like, the Looney Tunes have solid output after the 1950s, in my opinion. Like, the new...
Maybe.
To a degree, I think I loved the Looney Tunes show, which was that weird animated sitcom they had.
Yeah,
when
I do
when was a kid.
honestly. That weirdly has kind of a soft spot in my heart. I think I'm
Or-
not supposed to like it as a classic cartoons fan, but I kind of do.
I have a very soft spot in my heart for Back in Action. Like,
Sure,
to
fair
me, but like Tom and Jerry, nothing. Like, even theatrical shorts after that initial period, it was awful. And so I just think, seriously, folks, I recommend you watch these back to back just to see how clear the night and day difference is. If you decide to watch There's a Doctor in the Mouse at all, because honestly, it is not essential at all. And unless I notice this similarity now, I doubt it would have ever gotten mentioned on this podcast.
Yeah, I don't think that cartoon would have come up. I'd eventually have to address the Chuck Jones, Tom and Jerry era, but it wouldn't have been fun to do.
No. Hey, we got it over with now.
We got it
So-
over with. In this cartoon, The Invisible Mouse, we open with Jerry chasing a piece of cheese dragged along by an implied Tom. He's looking as good as ever here. Like, this is Jerry with maximally appealing design, lots of personality. And this is where immediately Scott Bradley is kind of the star of the show here, the composer I mentioned before, because he's accompanying all these little movements with piano music that evokes scurrying up and down the piano keys.
The little footsteps of Jerry timed. Again, we reached the point of this episode where it's just going to be me going like, there was a gag that was really funny.
Yeah, me
But,
too.
like,
It'll be fine, Tori. We'll be okay. We've earned
But-
this.
it's just so perfect. It's just so perfect.
There's like a warm Mr. Rogers-y feel to the sound of that piano that's really comforting for me.
Now I'm just picturing Jerry in a red sweater. But
Yeah, actually being nice to people instead of electrocuting people, that would be an interesting take for Jerry.
in the other cartoon you made me watch, Jerry was very nice to that bird. I think he just isn't nice to Tom.
It's true, yeah. Like, he definitely has an ethical code where he will look out for other little guys. And invariably, at least in this Hanna-Barbera period, they will take a while to make sure you understand that Tom has done something bad to deserve what's coming to him. And again, often not just out of an instinct like hunger. Like, you look at the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons, and audiences sympathize a lot with Wile E. Coyote a bit more, and we're saying to Chuck Jones, hey, when is he going to get to catch the Roadrunner? I feel bad for the guy. Like, that slips into one of the later cartoons where they actually show children watching the cartoon on TV and going, sometimes I feel bad for the coyote and wish he could catch the Roadrunner. And the other's like, yeah, but then there wouldn't be any more Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons. And I think that's because it comes out of hunger. It's this need that the coyote has that he's trying to meet, whereas Tom just wants to play.
And Tom just like is so annoyed by this guy. He's not. I'm sure in some of the cartoons it is a hunger thing, but like here he's got plenty of food.
Oh yeah,
He's got
always a fully stocked fridge.
always a fully stocked fridge. Like
You'd
in one of the
never
other,
know
like,
in a Tom and Jerry cartoon that there were rations. Doesn't apply to their house. What's nice about these scores for the purposes of the cartoons, and you'll notice it in this cartoon from the very beginning, is that Bradley is able to add an energy at a pretty snappy pace to scenes that are otherwise a little slow. Like when there's not a lot going on, or a cartoon's just kind of creeping up on a piece of cheese, he'll add something that's a little bit faster paced, but nevertheless fits the psychology of the character in that moment. And so it does not take you out of it, but it just adds to it. Jerry's attempt to psychologically trick the piece of cheese by suddenly pretending he's not interested in it is very well timed and very funny. That's why the timing is so crucial to these cartoons. Like, it got a laugh out of me earlier today, even though I've watched this a bunch of times now recently.
I think I was still. I think I watched this like 4 or 5 times to prepare for this, and I think I was still laughing at things by the fifth watch. Like it's a very funny cartoon.
Tori, you are way too committed to this podcast. I thank you. I appreciate your friendship and how dedicated and true it is, but that is way too much dedication to this podcast. There's a lot of time to process the reveal of Tom about to drop the iron. I was surprised by the cutting into separate shots to emphasize different moments in the iron's fall, because that means more backgrounds to draw. Like, that just makes their job harder than if they'd left it all one wide take, and usually comedy is better in wider takes anyway. But I think it makes sure that everybody in the audience knows to give attention to the inciting incident in the story, since this is the justification for all of the harm these two are going to inflict on each other for the rest of the short. And it also adjusts your mind to a particular pacing and rhythm that the chase is about to totally destroy, which is going to make it feel even faster. Tori has nodded. Okay.
You said that very well, and I just want to be like, and it's really funny when he drops the iron on his foot,
and it lands on Tom's
screams.
foot. Yeah. We get that signature Bill Hanna scream. That's definitive of these cartoons. Like, that is, you don't want to hear Tom talk, you want to hear him scream with the voice of Bill Hanna.
I give a pass for singing. Screaming is a must. He must scream in every cartoon because it is the funniest thing.
I've never been able to do an imitation of the notes that Bill is able to hit in his screams. I don't know how he didn't just rip his throat to pieces. It's so good.
He might have. He might have.
The physicality as they run and jump here as they're getting up the staircase is really lovely. So we've got smearing effects out the wazoo in this cartoon. So when you pause a lot of these images, they still feel really dynamic. You can still tell that they're moving fast. And whenever they have to turn, to take a turn as they're running, you see their feet running in place, which is common enough in cartoons from different studios. But Hanna and Barbera have an especially strong sense of how to use that to make you feel how heavy they are and how hard and fast they're running.
My favorite part, which we are about to get to, is everything you just said, and it's the rail scene. It's when they're going down that rail and it feels like it's at 1,000 miles per hour, and like the rail is a complete blur. Like Tom and Jerry are very clearly seen, but like the rail is just completely smoothed and completely blurry, and it's just like it happens so quickly. Like that's the thing I love, is like the speed of this cartoon is just, I'm struggling putting the words because it's just like, it's so mesmerizing. You just can't look away.
And it's fast and slow. Like, it takes those moments to breathe. And at some points, I would say a bit too much. But then it doesn't feel disjointed when it picks up the speed. It all feels natural and earned, and everything flows really gracefully.
1,000%.
As they slide down the banister, it goes in two separate directions at the bottom somehow. I don't know who builds a house like this.
I had a couple questions about the house as I was watching all these. I was like, because I remembered, in my head, every Tom and Jerry cartoon started with some sort of owner being like, oh, Tom, you got to make sure to catch them. Like,
Right.
in my head, it was like Baby Herman's mom at the start of Roger Rabbit. Like that happened
Sure.
every time.
Yeah.
And I found myself asking a few times, like, not that this matters at all, but
What
like
is the living arrangement? Who owns the house? Is it Tom's house?
Yes.
You could wonder. I think there are some later cartoons where it basically is, but
Like the one we talked about is Serenade.
Solid Serenade.
Solid Serenade. It's pretty clear that it's the cat's house. Like it's the
And
cat
yet-
girl's house.
and yet there's a dog house.
And yet Spike is. Are we to believe that she's Spike's owner? They are basically equal. So how is it's let's
Unclear.
clear the logic? I should not be trying to think about the logic of these cartoons
Nope.
as much as I did.
Especially
But
not
it's-
given how late at night it is. We got to keep on trucking, Tori.
Oh my gosh.
So
you gotta start recording at 9 o'clock in the morning, not 9 o'clock in the
I
evening.
know. So Tom flies into the wall. A clock falls on his head. Cue the cuckoo clock bit. Tom sucks up Jerry with a fireplace bellows, like is what that kind of thing is called, and shoots him up into the air onto a Joe Barbera staple, the plate rail. For whatever reason, Joe Barbera loved that kind of shelf called a plate rail, where you just have a bunch of plates displayed on it. And Jerry, in multiple cartoons, is knocking those plates down from their very first one, from Puss Gets the Boot.
We should bring that back. That's a piece of the of the living arrangement that's not around anymore.
I was watching this cartoon and a few of these going, part of me wants to like live in an old-timey house that has plate rails, cuckoo clocks that have like the proper, like I was looking up today, how expensive would it be realistically for me to get the kind of cuckoo clock that does this? And the answer is, for my budget, too much. We've lost so much culture.
My guess is $500,000.
It depends on where you're getting it from, but if you want the real deal, yeah, you can easily pay like $1,000 for a genuine article from Germany or whatever.
You know what's something I'm glad we don't keep around anymore? Random chemistry sets in the home.
Yeah, so Jerry leaps up onto a desk and successfully hides from Tom by diving into the inkwell. But does he meet Coco the Clown? No! That's a reference for our Fleischer fans out there. Woo woo. For this inkwell is for invisible ink. Jerry's lower half is invisible.
I almost wonder if this is almost a slight fourth wall break, because like if you covered if in real life you covered a mouse in invisible ink, it wouldn't do anything. But because he is ink.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That the invisible ink has to take on this logic because they are all made of ink. And so
Yes.
it would have a different effect on them because they are cartoons. That is a take I had not thought of, and I really appreciate that. That makes this
That's
a lot more interesting.
By like the third or fourth viewing, that's where my head was going.
Wow, it pays to spend a lot of time with these cartoons that people were definitely meant to come in the middle of and then forget about. So you see Jerry kind of reaching around for his lower half. He reaches out in front of his waist. Like, what you reaching for there, Jerry? You don't have one. Stop it. Once he figures out that he can turn invisible, he gives a smile to the camera that is so full of joy to the point that it's just silly. He goes back into the inkwell and comes out completely invisible. And this is where the cartoon gets really good.
I think it was good before this. This turns it into great. This
Is where there's like
into an
some like
all-timer.
it's magical because the camera moves up as the music moves up, and in that moment we're locked in. We have our eyes on Jerry even though we can't see him.
I was trying to think if this was for the animation team, if this would have been easier or harder than like a normal animation with him in the frame. And I would say harder because you got to track the movement of something that's not there. And yet they do it so believably and so like, you know exactly where Jerry is at every moment, even though they don't do the thing I was kind of expecting them to do where he's like not actually invisible to us. You know how like some
Right.
where it's like,
They could have done it where our point of view is we can see him but other people can't, and instead
not
what do you
even
mean?
that. Like, I mean, like in certain comics, it'll be just the outline of the invisible woman, and like you know what I mean. Like
Right.
like she's invisible, but you can still like see the vague details of her. Like that's what I was expecting, but no, he's just completely not viewable to anybody, including the viewer.
Right.
And I think that makes this work 1,000 times better.
So there is an article on a website I bring up all the time on this podcast now, cartoonresearch.com. Looks like it was by Charles Gardner. It's actually a multi-part article series called The Invisible Article that just goes through all the cartoons from the different studios that use the invisibility bit. It's a ton. And I've seen some of the others. Like I recently watched the Woody Woodpecker cartoon where he's invisible in a meat shop to try to steal all the food. I found it practically insufferable. It's so boring. Like this device can be really bad. But the reason why it was used in so many cartoons was probably just because it meant that they didn't have to draw another character. Like there is some sense in which it probably saved them some time and money, but they do have to be more thoughtful about how they approach it. And so in that article, as he's just sort of summarizing a lot of these cartoons with a little bit of reviewing, he does say that the Invisible Mouse is probably the most successful out of all of these at doing the invisibility thing. And from what little I've seen of them, I guess I have a lot more work to do and should have watched a ton of rando cartoons from different studios before recording this episode. But I am inclined to agree. And part of why I wanted to use this cartoon, in fact, as the introduction to Tom and Jerry, is you get to see how much their technique and craft is really refined, so that it's not simply a gag that he's invisible. It becomes part of the cartoon's whole approach to comedy, story, performance. It kind of defines the style of the thing. So like the camera movements and layout start doing a lot of the work and sort of guiding your focus. But then you have the return of the piano making the scurrying sound effect from the beginning. And then you also have the reaction, so to speak, of the different objects, of the stamp that he kind of moves across like it's a seesaw. And with like very specific attention, not just to making sure it shows you enough for you to get that idea, but making sure you feel his footsteps on it. When he lands on the pillow, you see the physicality of the pillow, the physicality of Jerry. You have a perfect sense for all of it, exactly where he is, how heavy he is, how he's moving, and his personality.
You can feel his weight when he's pulling down that little that napkin or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like you can feel the weight of Jerry as it falls slowly down the ground.
Which is just good animation, but it also makes you feel like he's there. And it adds interesting character moments. Like there is a double take in this initial invisibility sequence, which should not work. That is decidedly a visual gag, and we do not have the visual to see it. And yet you, in your mind's eye, completely see Jerry do a double take, and it's very effective, and you understand what he's thinking when he does it. So Tom is trying the same trap from the beginning of the cartoon, only this time, seemingly just to make it easier for this part of the story to progress, he's not around the corner. Did you notice this? Like, he's looking...
I noticed this. I also noticed it was weird that he was trying the exact same thing that had already
so
failed.
Strange. Well, yeah, Tom is, for the most part, not really the creative one, which is part of the fun of it. He just doesn't think things through past an initial idea or plan most of the time.
And sometimes he just doesn't think at all.
Yeah. It's part of what distinguishes Tom's personality from Jerry's a little bit. There are definitely moments where Jerry goes into things pretty headstrong without much thought. But the tricky thing about these cartoons compared to others from other studios, and I guess maybe even others from MGM, is that for as much as they're doing a kind of personality animation, which is to say they're using animation and all of the tricks of the trade to imbue characters with specific, understandable personality, they, in terms of facial expressions, tend to let the characters kind of look and be the same. Whether it's Tom, Jerry, or Spike, or sometimes other characters, if they're getting angry, they're probably making the same sort of pouty, angry face where you see the eyebrows come down, the lower lip gets stuck out. It's usually the same language for angry, a lot of similar smiles. Just generally speaking, they pull from a lot of the same communicative language in a way that is not very specific to them. But then that's where they have a lot of the movement coming in to fill in that gap, a lot of the writing filling that gap, even without them having much dialogue, and of course the music, which again is part of why it's so specific to these directors. And if you take it out of their hands, then it's very hard to recapture. So when Tom is trying the same trap from before, it's odd that he can now see the mouse hole and see the cheese, because at the beginning of the cartoon, part of the joke was that Tom can't see it and is still acting as though he can see Jerry. The cheese still moves as though it is reacting precisely to Jerry. So really, when you think about it, like the essential gag that was at the start of this cartoon that prompted the whole thing already assumes that Jerry is not visible to Tom, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference one way or the other. And now they expect us to believe that it makes such a big difference that Tom can't see Jerry. And yet I had to watch the cartoon a few times to notice that, because I completely believe it. For whatever reason, I buy it.
I just noticed it right now, and I've seen it several times today.
That just means that in a way they're good at their jobs. Like maybe they'll let a few things slip writing-wise, but in terms of technique, they just kind of pull it off.
Hanna and Barbera are good at their jobs.
I know. Well, I genuinely would question that based on the cartoons I watched with their name on it as a kid. Like, yeah, there was a lot of charm to wacky races and stuff, but a lot of times like the TV animation, I was just kind of like, okay, I respect this as history, but it's kind of trash.
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to bring up very briefly. It's so funny that this is their start. This really high quality animation that's all about visuals, and like the writing is important, but there's no dialogue to speak of in most of these. Whereas what would become their bread and butter that they're known for is poor animation with heavy use of script-based dialogue.
Yup.
Like this is the
total 180. But what they figured out in these cartoons is how to do the most with the least in one respect, in terms of being limited to the same concept, the same characters, very little dialogue, and just master the craft of animation there, to the point that when they had a lot of those tools of animation taken away and stripped down, and they had to rely on other elements, they were able to do it in a way that still had characters that people cared about and wanted to buy on a lunchbox or whatever, and dynamics that people could connect to. Like it's a paradox. It is weird.
Oh yeah. And they also learned how to make characters run in place for us before actually start running.
Yeah. The music we hear as Jerry is eating the cheese is his theme music by Scott Bradley that we hear throughout several of the cartoons, which is again part of how they distinguish these characters and identify them. Do you know what I mean? Where he's like Jerry's theme. It's lovely. Jerry notably takes advantage of his invisible status to drop the iron on the same foot it landed on before, to add insult to injury.
To add injury to injury.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom goes to take a drink from his milk bowl, and it moves on him.
Well, you miss the other thing that's really great, which is Jerry grabbing Tom's tail and shoving it into a live electrical wire.
Is that here? I thought that was later. Is that here?
No, that happens directly after the. I know I have the short up right now as we're talking, and he drops the thing on his foot, and then Tom grabs his foot and yells, and he's staring at the thing, and that's when Jerry just shoves it in the outlet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, all bets are off now. Like, we're at the point where they will do anything to each other. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, because somehow I had missed that in my notes.
That's why he's incredibly thirsty and exhausted, because he just got electrocuted.
Yeah, he just had all the moisture zapped out of him. So he goes to take this drink from his milk bowl, and it moves on him, and then Jerry slurps up every last drop of his milk and spits it in his face. Somehow that spit gag kind of surprised me every time. Like, I thought this was more of like Jerry is hungry and is going to eat all the food, that kind of thing. That's a runner. But no, it was just to upset and screw with Tom. So this experience has Tom worried that he's seeing things and concerned for his health. So he looks himself in the mirror, holds his alarmingly large tongue in his hand, and decides to go take a nap. The way Tom lies down to take a nap throws me off every time I see it. He lays his head in the pillow face down, kicks his left leg under his body and around back up on top, fully turning his body over. So now he has propped himself up like a tent with his leg crossed and he gracefully slumps down. What in the world? Like, to make a nothing moment like that into an interesting beat it takes someone or a couple of people, I guess, who are really committed to just going the extra mile.
I'm JD, I'm a little confused. That's not how you go to bed every night?
No, never done it before.
I mean, maybe that's why I have really bad back problems.
That's probably a very big part of it. No, the way that I go to bed is like everybody else, where I set the pillow at the end of the bed, put my head on it, and then flip the rest of my body over to fill out the rest of the bed. So we've got a familiar cartoon gag that appears here. It's our old friend, the Hotfoot. You know about the Hotfoot, Tori?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite cocktails. You take a fireball and you...
No, Tori.
And you put it in a shoe.
And drink from the shoe? Ew. Well, think if you're drinking out of a shoe, then you don't know what that's laced with.
No, you put...
There we go. All right. And we're back. The Hotfoot...
You chase it with hot sauce was the next part of that joke. Anyway,
okay,
continue.
very good. The Hotfoot was this real prank that people would do to each other in the studios.
Evil.
Yeah, like just generally people were doing this a lot in the 40s, but it was particularly prevalent in animation studios where they would, because everyone had a pack of matches on them for lighting cigarettes, so they light people's shoes on fire. It was awful. It was absolutely horrible.
Evil. That's
it's
illegal.
Really bad.
That's assault.
But I think that's part of why these Tom and Jerry cartoons were right for the moment, is like they kind of upped the aggression from a lot of the other cartoons. You know, I mean, admittedly, this particular prank shows up in multiple Warner Brothers cartoons, as I may have talked about if the Hollywood Steps Out episode came out before this. But like, it kind of fits in that time when people were so vicious to each other in some ways. And when you think about the war going on, that's kind of a big part of it, where it was just kind of normal for people to have a friend or a sibling or a child who was engaged in warfare, or oneself, where like violence was such a big part of the culture that of course they're going to have super violent cartoons like this. So Jerry carrying the matches is possibly my favorite moment in the cartoon. It gets a laugh out of me every time, and I think it's because of the personality. Even though you don't see Jerry, the Matchbox is walking like Jerry, with all of that sass that Jerry has. And more than that, what really sells it is the music. What Bradley's score does here, and I think he does this a lot throughout the series, is take a moment of total malice, this malevolence, and frame it as something other than diabolical hatred. He makes this violent plot a light and jovial thing with music that says, I'm just going to work at my happy little job. Like, you almost expect to hear hi ho, it's off to work we go, because of just that like chipper sense of like, here we go, we're off to do the thing, and the thing is set somebody on fire. Hi ho,
I'm off to burn my foe. Do 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 do.
Okay, very nice, Tori.
Thank you.
Very nice. But it's that juxtaposition that is kind of like the definitive tone of these cartoons in a way. So Jerry puts one match between Tom's toes. Stop me if I'm dominating the conversation too much. I took a lot of notes.
I thought you were about to say stop me if I heard this one.
Jerry puts one match between Tom's toes.
Here's the thing. You are putting this all in very like sophisticated, good language, whereas I would say, and so then he puts the match and it lights him on fire and it's funny.
This is all, but that's all that I need from a guest. Like, you're doing great, Tori. I
know I'm doing great. You don't have to tell me that.
Oh, okay. So Jerry puts one match between Tom's toes and then stops for a second. Then takes it out and puts the whole box between his toes. Now, this is the same type of joke Hanna and Barbera would use again for the Jetsons, the opening sequence when George gives Jane, his wife, some money from his wallet, and she takes the rest of the wallet. Like, if you've seen the Jetsons, you've seen that because it's in the opening sequence at the beginning of all the cartoons. So I actually think the Tom and Jerry version here is funnier because you see, even though you can't see it, Jerry taking a second and realizing what he wants to do there. That, for me, is what's particularly, because he takes that beat and you believe in his decision to just do one match and then you get, no, wait, I'm going to switch this out. That's what I think really sells this gag.
I also would probably argue that all of Tom and Jerry is better than the Jetsons.
Yes, but the Jetsons gave us Zoom, which is how we're having this conversation.
That is 1,000%.
They invented the technology.
Yes.
Okay. Tom starts to sweat, slowly wakes up, then suddenly sees the cloud of black smoke filling the room and shrugs it off and goes back to sleep. Then he notices the smell, sees his foot on fire, his eyes bulge a little, though they could stand to do much more bulging, in my opinion. They could have gone a little further into Tex Avery bulgy territory, but I'll take it. And we hear the fire alarm bell as he rushes to put his foot in a fishbowl.
I have the single frame of Tom looking at his foot on fire, and it's just, I want it in my house.
Yeah.
I want like a portrait of, it's beautiful. And yes, his eyes are like, go out to like here. They could go out to here. You know, they could be much bigger, but it still works with as they are now.
I think for Tom and Jerry cartoons, the reactions are usually designed to be functional more than they're designed to be the joke in and of itself. Whereas over at Warner Brothers, with some directors more than others, even at MGM when the Tex Avery cartoons, but especially at Warner Brothers in the Clampett cartoons, the reaction kind of is the joke. It's how big can the eyeballs get, or how many can there be? How far can they leap out of the head? That, like, how much can the tongue roll on the floor? And there's a period in the Tom and Jerry cartoons where they pick up more of that, particularly after Tex Avery comes to MGM. But I think by this point they found they don't necessarily need that all the time, because there are other kinds of gags you can do that are a bit more specific to character psychology than just having eyeballs get really big. But I will say, for all of you fans of big eyeballs, if that's your thing, like if the big expressive reactions are your thing and that's what you love about classic cartoons, you're good. I respect you. That is also totally okay. All right, Anthony. Are you okay, Anthony? You good? You enjoying this Tom and Jerry podcast that you never thought you'd listen to? He's not a Tom and Jerry guy.
Hi, Anthony.
Hello. It's me.
Because we
Anthony.
know.
Hello.
we know that the only people who listen to this podcast is Anthony Strand. It's just him a few times.
That's my fear. Yeah.
But hey, I listen. That's 2 people.
Thank you. And if just 2 people believe in you, then you must not have many friends. But you know what? It's a really good start. Jerry,
we got this far into the podcast
before Muppet reference.
Yeah.
That's
which
pretty
is
good for us.
impressive.
High five,
really
Tori. High
impressive.
five.
That's really impressive. But continue, please.
So Jerry freaks out Tom by playing a little tune on the piano. It's that do. That's a tune called Misterioso Pizzicato. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
It's a great name for that.
Yeah. So you've heard this piece in many cartoons before. There's sort of a reworking of it in the first Silly Symphonies cartoon, The Skeleton Dance, which we'll get to soon enough. But it was first published in 1914 as part of a collection of songs for accompanists to silent films. Like the people who would play the scores live in the theater for the silent movies just had a book that they, surely several different books, but I guess this was a reasonably popular book that they could pull from with different themes that they could use. And this was supposed to be the theme for the villain. And it's not clear if it was written by the editor of that collection, J. Boldwalt Lampe. What a name.
That's a great name for that guy.
Perfect name for that guy. Congrats, that guy. But it's a piece that was very much around for anybody to use, despite it not being nearly as old as like the classical compositions that they usually had to use when they weren't sticking to their own studio's song catalog. Finally, Tom catches Invisible Jerry in the darndest way. He sees his shadow. Makes sense?
6 more weeks of the animation podcast.
If I'm lucky. Yeah, it's really dropping the very concept of invisibility if he's got, I don't know, whatever. But and they needed a way to change the power dynamic here, so I guess I'll accept that an invisible mouse has a shadow. Fine. Tom whacks him with a big book, gives him an enormous bump. Another thing that these cartoons did is like they make the lumps huge. This is like a Pinocchio situation. in terms of how it grows. It's really gross, and it always kind of bothered me when these cartoons did this.
It bothers me too. Let's stop talking about it.
After Jerry runs under the refrigerator, Tom coats the floor with flour so he can see Jerry's footprints. And now the dynamics of the cartoon have changed. Not as much as you'd think, but they've changed a little.
It's so funny because, again, it's been a very long time since I've seen this cartoon. When he started putting the flour down, I thought it was to coat Jerry.
Right.
So to put flour on him to make him slightly visible.
Right.
I mean, it still ends up working to a degree, but it's more interesting than I thought they were going to go.
Right. That's the thing, is they don't completely flip the power dynamic here. They just complicate it. It's like it's a little escalation without eliminating their premise, which I think is really slick. Tom whacks Jerry with a frying pan. Jerry writes, "Missed me," in the flour and runs away.
That was the biggest laugh I had this
Yeah,
entire
it
time.
should not work because that should have been a hit, but you gotta allow it. It feels like a little Averyism that's left over, and I really appreciate it.
I enjoyed that.
You'll notice that Tom looks up at Jerry's scurrying footprints, even though we can see that there aren't any in that shot. It's quite strange. You get little slips like that. Doesn't matter. The podcast continues. Tom manages to pick up Jerry, but as usual, hasn't really thought through what happens next. Jerry twists his whiskers and snaps them in his face. That's a visual, and that hurts to watch.
I have that frame paused right now, and that's an eyeball stretch right there. That's
Yeah, it's something. Oh boy, here we go. Now you can hear what happens when we record too late at night. This is the part of the podcast where my thought starts to be, yep, okay.
Oh no, we're switching. Now I'm going to have these very long...
Yeah, detailed analyses of how it fits into the larger context of the practice of character animation.
So, characters started having noses in 19...
Had to be invented by the Walt Disney Studio, although there are significant precursors at the Fleischer Studio that tend to get overlooked. Tom...
Gertie the dinosaur didn't have a nose, so everybody...
It's true. You got me there. But that mosquito, how he operates, definitely involves something like a nose. So you got to give credit to
so
Winsor
after
McKay.
this-
So Tom pulls down a curtain and uses it to trap Jerry, then mercilessly thumps him with a big book. Or so we think. Jerry slips out like the brave little tailor slipping out of the giant's cave when they think they've clobbered him to death. And he
Never seen that cartoon.
Never seen it?
No.
Okay. Grabs a golf club, and there's that happy little gnome off to work music and lighty-lighty-dee.
Hi-ho, I'm off to putt my foe.
As he struts over to Tom with that club. Love the way that it moves, the way that he walks. He lines up the shot like he's actually playing golf, and then gives Tom a powerful whack.
And this, but outside of the steps at the beginning, this is my favorite use of the music. The way when it swings, it gets like that.
Yep.
Like it's just Scott Bradley's very good at his job.
Never gets as much praise as Carl Stalling, but I really think had, at the very least, comparable talents, to be sure.
And part of my ignorance, who's Carl Starling?
Carl Stalling started as a composer at Disney, was kind of like the go-to Disney composer, and the Silly Symphonies, starting with the Skeleton Dance, were made to suit his talents. But then soon enough, he ended up at Warner Brothers and was their composer for a very long time and defined the Looney Tunes sound. Yeah, he's the main people think of, I think, when they think of cartoon composers, because he's so involved in
Both.
the key musical moments from those two major studios. And then Scott was a name that I didn't really pay attention to for a very long time. Although there is a bonus feature about him that has like a lot of his thoughts that he wrote down for some essay or magazine interview that I think is fascinating. That's on... I think it's just called the Behind the Tunes, the MGM Orchestra, which you'll find on one of the Tom and Jerry DVDs or Blu-rays out there. So Tom chases the floating club onto the front porch, smashes Spike the Bulldog through Jerry smashes Spike the bulldog through the floorboards. That is either a very heavy dog or a very strong mouse.
That was, I think, my biggest laugh was just the hole in the floor, like the hole.
Your laugh keeps getting bigger and bigger, Tori. You keep changing it, so I'm glad that this brought you so much delight.
It's like my eyeballs, you know?
But it is like a clean cut in the floor. But then what's great is Jerry hands the club to Tom, of course. Great move. And then Spike puts his hands out of the hole first, like he's Kermit on The Masked Singer. You get the hands first to tell you what's coming. Then he pops up with a huge red bump on his head that instantly disappears a moment later.
See, it might take us an hour and a half to get to the first Muppet reference, but once we get one, we're just going to be on a roll.
I can't believe that's the second Muppet reference I made. The Masked freaking Singer of all things.
The Muppets are weird, folks.
Oh, yeah. Spike starts golfing with Tom and just keeps hitting him all the way down the street. Inside, Jerry sips on some chocolate milk, which somehow fills his body and makes his ears pop out as though they were not merely invisible, but had been gone and needed to be regrown. But
this is so weird. I think I mentioned this earlier. Love Spike. Use Spike more. Spike's a great character.
You know that they gave Spike and his son Tyke their own brief cartoon series. Like one of the few, not on TV, but one of the few things that Hanna and Barbera did outside of Tom and Jerry in their time directing theatrical shorts was a couple of cartoons just about those characters without Tom and Jerry.
I feel like one of them was on the DVD I watched in middle school.
It's possible. I doubt it, but they are featured pretty prominently in some of the Tom and Jerry cartoons, and that might be it. I will say that both of them have been released in their full widescreen in beautiful HD on the very recent, released this year as of this recording, Tom and Jerry CinemaScope Collection Blu-ray from the Warner Archive. And if you pick that up, you're getting not their funniest cartoons, but a lot of very pretty cartoons, including another cartoon that they did without Tom and Jerry, another rarity in that sense. What the devil is it? Goodwill to Men. Fascinating cartoon, a remake of Peace on Earth, which is we'll get into that one some other time. We do not have time to process what the logic is of the chocolate milk making Jerry visible again, as though he was an empty glass that just needed to be filled to be visible. And the reason why we don't have time to process it is because that is where we iris out, and that is the end of the cartoon. That is it.
Okay, I'm not going to try to process it then.
Okay. What did you want to say, Tori? I could see you were itching to say something.
That the reason Tom wants Jerry so much is because this whole time Jerry's been made out of chocolate, and Tom just really likes chocolate.
I see. This whole time, chocolate mousse meant chocolate mouse, and it was Jerry, and it's 11:43 p.m., so that's the kind of insights that you're going to get from old JD.
Cats cannot eat chocolate, folks. Do not feed your cats chocolate. I had to Google this.
But you can feed them mice. You can feed the mice all you want.
Not that you should.
Yeah, you got to do it. It's important for their health. You want them to have wet noses?
That's dumb.
Yeah, it is dogs.
Anyway,
no, Tori, it's dogs that you can't feed chocolate.
No, you can't. I Googled it. Cats can't have chocolate either.
But they have to have wet noses then, right? Don't those go? I don't know. I'm gone. We're done. Oh, we're so done.
Thank you for tuning into another one, folks. This has been...
yeah, you want to finish it? You want to wrap it up?
I'm Tori Schmidt. This has been Not a Muppet Show podcast. We're bringing it back.
This is an episode of your show? I mean, this was definitely not a Muppet Show podcast. It fits the title.
Yes, this is an episode of my Muppets Tonight rewatch podcast that made it to episode 5. Were you ever on that?
No, I was told I was going to be on it, and then it never happened. What happened?
And then my job took over my life, and I didn't have any time for anything. And then I learned I hate podcast editing. That's what happened.
Oh, it's rough. It is. It's tough, which is why I honestly don't want this episode to go on any longer. Folks, it's about time for us to say so long, but before we do, we'll tell you where you can find us. Tori, where should the people go to find you, your work, or anything you'd like to plug?
You can find me on Blue Sky at the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. I don't actually know the @ but just type in the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. If you're listening to this after June 1st, go to YouTube and type the 2025 class of the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame to see who we inducted and all the fun stuff. The ceremony is going to be really fun this year. We got some musical performances and some fun stuff. So, yeah, check me out there and listen to my friend JD Hansel's podcast, Stick to Shorts. It's very good.
Aw, shucks. Yeah, I've heard good things. We should be telling people to just Google things a lot. Well, like search for things in search bars, because that's probably the easier way for people to find things.
Right?
I appreciate that. Like handles can be hard to remember, but you can just search somebody's name.
I don't even remember my own handle if I'm being completely honest. So like just Google me, you'll find me.
Well, with that in mind, you can find me on Blue Sky by searching for JD Hansel. You can find Stick to Shorts on Blue Sky or Facebook by searching for Stick to Shorts. To send me an email, you will just have to type in the email address. Search bars have not replaced that. It's jd@sticktoshorts.com. You can read my writing about Muppets at toughpigs.com, where you'll also find my podcast, The Great Muppet Fandom Panel. Coming up next on Stick to Shorts, if you enjoyed hearing us talk about the live-action animation hybrid scene in Anchors Away, you'll really like the next cartoon. It's an even earlier example of putting cartoon characters in a live-action space, and while it's not quite as polished as the Anchors Away sequence, and not as groundbreaking as the much earlier Out of the Inkwell shorts, it's got quite a legacy. It is cited as the inspiration for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Join us for our season finale as we get into one of the most acclaimed cartoons ever made, starring Porky Pig, and making his Stick to Shorts debut, Daffy Duck. It's 1940s, You Ought to Be in Pictures. Please be sure to give us a review so more people can find us, and remember, the next time you try to catch an invisible mouse, stick to shorts.